welcome to My Mentor. This is a platform that seeks to provide world-class mentoring content by leveraging on the skills, experiences, wisdom, and knowledge of established professionals, leaders, business people, and entrepreneurs. We seek to inspire, empower, and challenge professionals and individuals to reach the next level in their professional, business, and career leadership journeys. Welcome to the next level.
It was South African Actuary Development Program. It was actually Cyril's brainchild. So at some point, Cyril, I think, was on the board. He was chairman of SASRIA. And then I think there was a stat that was shown to him about the number of, the demographics of the actual profession. And he said something needs to be done. So he recruited a lady, Nolanda Kize, who started the program. And in 2001, they went out to all the varsities and they selected, a group of, black students who had actually done well. And they decided to support them. And that program now has gone on to, I think, it's been running now since 2000.
So did you have to apply, or they went to class and say, let's pick these 4 or 5 people?
So initially, because the program had just started, they literally went to the varsities and said, give us a list of, so they basically took us from our second year. But now they've been taking students from matric who are, who've shown. So they also do road shows. They'll go around the country and they'll sort of like visit different schools, especially schools that have shown to produce, very good mathematics marks. And then they'll go to those schools and visit them because they believe that's probably where you will find the talent, but also you want to go to those schools also just to educate them because I was fortunate. I was in a school where we had the exposure to some knowledge of actual science, but you go to certain schools where someone is a top performing student, has maybe all the skills and the talent, but has never heard of it, and is probably going to be told by their teachers, do a name career, like be an accountant, be a doctor, that everyone knows, and no one knows what being an actuary is. So I think it's an initiative that they're running. But for me to talk about why at varsity I almost felt I had no choice, it was because of, I think, that it was that I knew I was there. I knew the background and the context of which I came from. And I realized, as I went through my studies, that what I'm doing is actually inspiring, the next generation. So as difficult as it's been, it's taken me a while, many years to eventually qualify. I always knew I had to qualify. Because of, even if it's just to add, to the numbers of, and contribute to changing the demographics of our country and hopefully inspire other people to follow.
I think you've done well. So you mentioned words like rigor, determination, resilience. These are values I believe you embody. Would you say, your background and upbringing had a huge role to play in instilling some of these values?
I do. As I mentioned, my father passed away when I was 8. And my mother had to raise 4 kids on her own. And I think I was 8 at the time. My brother was 10, sister was 12, my older sister was 16. So we were still all relatively young. And she had to do this mostly on her own. And my siblings were mostly in boarding school. I was the only one who actually, when my mother had to, at the start of that phase, when she now had to look after us on her own, I was the only child that was like consistently at home because I was schooling at home. And to see my mother go through those challenges while committed to ensuring that we all get to school and we all grow and don't feel the impact of having lost our father. The challenges, the resilience you have to have, and also as a parent, you have the burden of also ensuring that whatever stress you're feeling does not, come down or water down onto your children. You always have to ensure that they, you do what's important for them to have, a happy, and productive childhood. But at the same time, you carry a lot of burden. And, as a child, I don't think you quite understood as much. You always knew that your mother was doing the best that she could and to see her. But I think as you grow as an adult and you realize, just how much pressure and how much burden she would have taken on by herself. And we all know that, as much as you have family and friends, people aren't always going to be there to support you. And my mother had to always, because she had the determination to make sure that, despite having lost our father very young, we would still achieve and be able to do all the things that we needed to do. So I think for me, I always learned from her, the ability to, stand for yourself, to be independent, to work through difficult challenges, and always I think, yes, get advice, get people to help you, but always be willing to, be resilient and stick through to what you want to achieve. In school, she was like one of the best,
Yes. So
math students. I get some of it from her. And she always used to tell me the story of how, prior to tests and exams, her classmates, because they, out of envy or whatever, would steal those geometric sets or anything that she would use, or take her notebook or whatever. And then she would always commit to, even despite that, she would outperform everyone. And she never complained. She never made it an issue. And she used to use that story to remind me that you need to forget the circumstances, be committed to what you're going to achieve, and realize that you will have setbacks, you will have people who don't want to see you successful, but never let that affect your motivation, your desire to be the best that you can be. And you don't have to be a person who complains and cause issues. Just push on and try to achieve the best that you can.
Your mom seems to have had a huge impact in your life. I would imagine losing a father at a young age can have detrimental effects on someone who's 8 years old. How did you at the time manage to still continue with life and still do well?
So I think what helped is my mother. I think she did everything she could to make sure that, at least from a provision point of view as a family, we were okay. Obviously, we would never be able to live the life that if both my parents had been alive, but my mother always ensured that you would never be able to look back on your childhood and say you lacked for much. I think that's what she did. And I think she always ensured that, we had everything that was needed in terms of, provision and being able to go to school and have all the things that we need. So I think created, almost a flaw to know that we don't feel the impact that much. I think what also helped is that, having been very young and I was the youngest of my siblings, the importance of having people who also shared a lot of, stories about my father and the kind of person he was and his own challenges. Because my father was the first doctorate from where he came from. My father was born in a rural village where he also had significant challenges in terms of, pushing through to finish his qualifications and get to where he was. So I think those were things that helped, give me the context of where I come from, what my background is, and what I think, my father would have wished for me or would have wished to have seen. So I think I lived with using a lot of what people shared with me as ways of, inspiring and encouraging me in terms of my own journey, knowing that if my father had been around, this is how he would have wanted you to achieve. And also my mother supported us in a way and raised us in line with the values that he would have wanted to see in us.
And your 3 siblings, were they also academically focused? What are they doing now?
So my family is actually quite diverse. My oldest sister is a social worker. So she took the journey of wanting to be, beneficial, helping people with, who are having significant challenges in life. So I think she had a very altruistic view of her career. My brother did a BCom. He's an established private bank and now works at Investec, has been that for many years. He found the balance between, the ability, the client side and also, having a commercial financial services type career. My sister works as an employee benefits consultant at Signia, and she studied. She's got a CFP. She's got, she's actually got 2 degrees. She has a BA honors, and she's also got a BCom degree with also in economics and finance. So we've all got almost that nuance of an ability to be academic. I think I sort of then, as a younger sibling, took it a little further and decided to be an actuary.
That's fantastic. So now you are the CFO of Absa Financial Services. How does an actuary end up being a CFO?
Look, I think, as I said, my career has been one where I've always challenged myself to try something different, try something new. I always knew I would never end up in one area and stick with that all the time, because I'm a person who likes to take on new challenges. If I've mastered something, I tend to get bored of it and I want to try something new. and I've always been willing to test myself. And fortunately, my background and my training has allowed me to do that. So I think after I spent many years in sort of actual roles in life insurance companies and employee benefits, I then for the first time got into like investments where I was an equity analyst. And I spent a lot of time, analyzing companies, their financials, strategy, and what makes these companies tick. And then you engage with management and see, how the impact of leadership has on the execution of strategy, and how to actually see what are the kind of qualities that actually make successful CEOs and sometimes not so successful CEOs. And then I think having had that experience, I had the opportunity then to move to ABSA, where I had a head of strategy role.
So before you moved to ABSA, you were an equity research analyst.
Yes.
What does an equity research analyst do?
So your main role is you work for an asset management company that invests people's monies on the stock exchange, on bond markets, and also in sort of like money market type instruments. So the work that you do is to help the asset managers select assets that will give clients the best returns. So you then are the person who gets given a suite of companies to analyze, and then your job is to then say, out of the companies that you've got in your sample, which are the companies that you expect to actually outperform. And then you're responsible for, whether the asset manager then takes money and invests in that company. So as much as it's quite an exciting role, an interesting role to have, there's a significant purpose to it. You're actually helping people grow their wealth and grow their savings. So it's both, I think, an exciting role from, I guess, the exposure that you get in terms of understanding companies and just the dynamics that happen in the corporate environment, the corporate market. But it's also got a broader purpose and a bigger purpose that you have to remember that the decisions you're making are decisions that are driving people's, financial success or financial goals. So I think for me it was a great career that set me up then to take on a strategy role. And then I think where the world is going in terms of CFOs is that, CFOs used to be, lauded and respected for being great accountants.
Yes.
As long as you got the budgets right, got the numbers right, maintained costs. But the way the world is going now is that I think the shift in organizations to have more what they call strategic CFOs. So people who have the ability to both merge strategy and, the financials and ensure that, the strategic steps that we're taking and, our income statement, balance sheet, and our reporting actually line up. And I think that's where the bigger step up is. So I think for me, what created the opportunity for me is that I've done strategy work before. I've done the equity analysis piece. So I don't only bring, I guess, the ability to look at the numbers. There's a strategy element to it. And I think that's why when I was considered for the role, they thought I'd be great for it because I can combine both. And because the suite of companies that sit under ABSA Financial Services are mostly insurance businesses, with where IFRS 17 is going now. So IFRS 17 is a new accounting standard that's going to change the way in which insurance companies report. It's very close to how actuaries think about how profits are to be managed in a life insurance business or a short-term insurance business. So I think also the view is that you're probably best. I think there's a more greater opportunity for actuaries to become CFOs, especially for insurance businesses, because the relation that's coming is more keen to how they think, which doesn't come naturally, I think, for people who've studied like general accounting. It's very, very, if you've worked in a life insurance business and valued these kind of businesses, the way IFRS 17 is going is very much aligned to that. It's actually getting to the point where, the actuarial department, the finance department for an insurance business have to be one to actually be effective when IFRS 17 arrives as a standard. So I think that for me is where I think the opportunity rose, and where I think the opportunity is still for actuaries is that, the way that trends are going, or the way that the accounting standards are going, it creates an opportunity for us to even play that role. But I believe the role of a CFO is, yes, get the numbers right, make sure the numbers are right, but it's hard to merge the two between the strategy that the ExCo of the board has put together and how to make sure that manifests in our results.
So the term strategy is a term that people throw around a lot, and sometimes without even knowing what it actually means. What does strategy mean for you? So
me, strategy is the blueprint of how you take an organization from where it is today to where you want it to be.
Yeah.
So normally people talk about speaking about a vision and a purpose of a company, and that's usually very airy-fairy, isn't it? But strategy for me is, now how do we actually realize that? So for me, when I look at strategy, and as you said, different people have different views of how you articulate strategy.
Yeah.
Strategy to me is the tactical plans that you're going to put in place
Yeah.
to ensure that you arrive at a particular goal for a company.
Yeah.
And those things need to have, clearly set out accountabilities, responsibilities, and a way of monitoring and measuring them. But essentially, strategy is how you take where you are today and in a very crisp and concise way, set yourself up to get to where you want to be in the future. That's how I see strategy.
Yeah.
And it obviously has, as a result, you have different elements to it. There's an ideation point of design of strategy, which is where you as a firm have decided this is where you want to go, or you actually have to do the research to figure out what is the best direction to go. And that in itself is probably one of the key components of strategy, is that are you guys sure that the direction that you want to take is what's best? Understanding the operating model of the company, the culture, the dynamics of the market that you sit in.
Yeah.
So strategy has to understand the context very well,
Yeah.
and then have a view as to where could the world end up and how do we remain relevant and compete in that. Then there's an element now of what I call reporting, which is once you've come up with this strategy, you've come up with the plans and you're clear, there has to be an element of which you then take this and sell it, because it's strategy can't live at exco and board level. It has to be lived from the top employee in the company right down to the bottom, and people have to be aligned to it. So you then need to find the way in which.
And how do you sell it? How do you sell it across the organization?
So my belief is that you've got to distill it to a sense. First of all, to give people in a non-complicated way a sense of purpose. And the direction that the company is going, and give people what will our business or what will success look like in the future in a way that's not, financial metrics. It's just to get people to, when they get asked, why do you get up every day to go to work? It's because you're contributing to simplify it to that level. Then it's important that we align everyone's goals and objectives and the key performance metrics to things that actually drive elements of that strategy. And then I think the biggest thing, if you can achieve it, is then to show how someone in that achievement of their goals actually results in achieving the overall strategy. And that's how you create the alignment. To create a strategy that is, fancy and you only sell it to the market and you only sell it to boards, that doesn't trickle down to the average person, and they can't, when you stand up and say, guys, this is a presentation to staff about how our strategy is going, and you talk to the strategy and someone sitting there can't think for themselves is, how do I contribute to this? I think there's a gap that's missing. And the easiest way to do it is, give people a purpose and a view of what success looks like, and then distill it to them and showing them that what you're doing today, this is the impact that it has to the company.
I like how you put it. You simplify it quite nicely, and it comes across that you're someone who's worked in this field before, in the strategy field, that is. You were previously head of strategy for the WIMI division at Barclays Africa, or now ABSA Group, reporting to the CEO of WIMI. Talk to us about that phase of your life. Why did you move to strategy as an actuary?
So as I said, when I was an equity analyst, spent a lot of time studying strategy and analyzing strategy and making a decision as to whether, the strategy of this particular company is going to beat the strategy of another company. And also you have to, at some level, when you're an analyst, ask yourself, if you were the CEO of a business, what would you do? What was the strategy you would employ? And then ask yourself, why is this company not doing the same thing? So that you can actually make the call whether this is the right course for a company. But again, all you are in that sense is an analyzer and not someone who's actually driving strategy. So when the opportunity came, I took it on, because now I say, I've researched, I've studied strategies, I've seen what makes one company, more successful than another one. But I've never been part of the process in terms of coming up with a strategy and helping the businesses actually put it into practice.
And how did that opportunity come? Were you putting your CVs out? You worked with someone, they saw potential in you, and they said, I think he would make a very good head of strategy?
So when I initially joined, my initial role was to support the CFO. To come back to that whole point I was saying, is that he was a CFO who wanted to be a balance between both the strategic side and both the financial side. But the weight of his role meant that he spent the vast majority of his time, in the numbers. And he brought me on as an insurance and investment analyst to basically come and help him bridge the gap. So initially I was helping him work on strategic research, macroeconomic research, whatever was needed to help support his role and help marry what the strategy team was putting together in conjunction with the CE to then see how that would manifest. So from the contributions I was already making in those engagements, it became clear that I could actually be helpful. And at the time, they had an acting head of strategy who was looking to move on to another role. So when the opportunity came up, I think there's almost a natural progression for me. And already I'd been in the business talking both the numbers and talking the strategy. So it was a natural fit, because generally in some organizations you have people that are pure strategists. They're very good at strategy but can't make the link. They rely on the CFO to then do the financial link. I was a bit of a more natural fit because I already understood the numbers. I was working with the CFOs in finance, and I was also working with the strategy team. So I was then looked at to bring both worlds together in my role.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's quite interesting. A lot of people, I'd say, professionals, aspire to be at the C-suite, at executive level. You are a CFO. You've worked with CEOs and CFOs previously. You've been part of Exco. Can you share some insights around life at that level?
Well, look, it's fast-paced. I think when you're not working for someone that's in the C-suite, you always assume that these people have, they're always busy, they always seem busy. But it's quite interesting when you actually work with someone and realize the pace at which they are expected to make decisions, the pace at which they manage to drive execution of the business objectives and the strategic initiatives that the business is running. For me, the biggest learnings I took from it, if you ever work for someone that's in the C-suite, is you have to find a way to enable them to make great business decisions, allowing for the fact that these people don't have a lot of time. So the ability for you to take, let's say, if you have a strategic goal, a strategic initiative, to synthesize it in such a way that the CE in a very short space of time is very clear of what you're trying to do and why they have comfort that this is the right way to do it. That's how you really add value. You enable them to basically deliver and execute without having to go into detail, because a lot of executives don't have the time to get deep into the detail. They rely on having the right kind of people. And that's why if you look at a lot of companies, CEs are very specific around who they bring into the businesses, because you've got to have trust that the people that you're using and you're working with will deliver on initiatives. So without having to go into you have to actually have that element of trust. So I found that the biggest learning for me was that it's not about the best analysis, the most fanciest thing, getting all the detail out there. It's how do you send a crisp message and package a message that a CE can take, make decisions on, that drives, because you have all the information, you have all the detail, and you know what is the right, but he needs to be able to stand up and take the responsibility and chart the path forward using what you have actually given. So it is an environment where your ability to be crisp, where your ability to be clear, and your ability to to help and also be decisive yourself, because there will be requests that you will get and they will want you to arrive at a solution or an answer, or at least provide the information to help them answer the question quickly. But as well, it's also a growth phase. I think you actually then learn how to manage multiple things at a very fast pace. So I think for me, the biggest culture shock about it is how, we all have a pattern of how we work. You come to work every day, you tell yourself, I'm going to get something done. But working for C-suite means that you have to be very comfortable that you can get to work and you get one email and your entire week changes in terms of what are your priorities, what you said. And for you to align yourself to that and still be able to do everything else, because that's the nature of an executive's role. The world is moving quickly. And executives are only successful, if they've got people around them who help them to execute and make decisions, quality decisions. You're not always going to make the right choice, but well thought out quality decisions. And that's really where I think you refine your own skills in terms of how you synthesize things and help implement ideas. Because to be honest, you could have a great idea. If you can't get a senior person to look at it and see where the benefit and the quality of it is, a lot of your great ideas aren't going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest learning is, it's just that. How do you learn how to, in a very short, quick space of time, arrive at decisions that will actually benefit the business, and that the CEO can take what you've done and then run with it, or give you the go-ahead to implement and execute on something.
One question I wanted to ask is around leadership. So as a CFO and previously head of WIMI strategy, you played a leadership role. Tell us briefly, what does leadership mean for you, and how do you lead in an organization such as ABSA?
So I see leadership as both a privilege and a responsibility. I think you are fortunate to find yourself in a position where people believe that you can, take a group of people and gather them around and utilize their skills and their abilities to achieve a goal. That's, I think, for me, a privilege. It shouldn't be treated as something that, I think some leaders assume that they deserve leadership. I think it's actually a privilege, because not only is the organization entrusting you with their goals, they're also entrusting you with the development and growth of the people that sit under you. So I'm very much about leadership through example. So I tell myself that there should never be anything that any habit or characteristics that I am implementing or I execute or I do that I don't want the people who work for me not to be inspired by. And how I challenge myself as a leader is to always just make sure that your goal, in as much as it's about achieving an outcome for a business, it's also about making sure that the people under you become better than they were the year before. Because if as a leader, my direct report is the same person or has the same skills and the same place they were when the year started, I haven't actually achieved my goal. And I'll only get the best out of my people through ensuring that they grow and develop. And that means also then having the ability to also allow your people to take a lot of the credit for stuff, and also shielding them sometimes from when things aren't going so well, to play that filter with them so that they can also grow and learn under you. So I think for me, the other big thing is also to be consistent as a leader. It's very important, because so people understand and know what to expect from you. I think any person that is in an organization wants to know that that there's an element of certainty in terms of how things are going. And as a leader, if you're consistent in terms of how you are and approach, it gives people the comfort and it instills a sort of peace and calm that we can actually sit and focus on our jobs, knowing that we manage someone that has got consistent expectations of who they are and what they are. But the bigger thing also, as I've always spoken to, is that you have to inspire people to a greater purpose and always to do better than what they currently do. So by nature, my biggest thing is to, whenever I find a process, I ever come into anything, I always want to make things better. And in that, you also then try to inspire the people around you that whatever we're doing, whether it's producing financial statement, whatever it is, it might seem a very mundane job, we're always looking to do things better because we have a greater purpose that we're working towards. I believe it's also important to make sure that people know in terms of what their roles are, what their accountability, and be very clear about the direction at which you are taking people, so that people always know, where they're headed and how they fit into delivering that. And that's actually what makes you a great leader. It's the fact that you can see your leadership role as a privilege and as a responsibility to your organization and also to the people that work under you, to get the best out of them and to ensure that you're consistently aligning them to the greater purpose of what you're doing to get the best out of them.
Gcina, thank you so much for taking the time. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation, and congratulations again for your success to date.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for this opportunity.